So you're very welcome this morning to Educogym live with Jamie and Jacqui, and I am delighted that Jacqui is also here. Let me just bring you in, Jacqui. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, Jamie.
Great.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm brilliant. Thank you very much for asking. We were talking yesterday about what we would discuss and, the sort of things that we think that really make a difference to people. And we were going to talk about metabolic syndrome and the role that protein and muscle plays in really good metabolic health. So, yeah, I think when you talk to people about metabolic health, what is it that we first talk about when we meet people and when we start to get them involved in the program?
Well, when people come into us, like I know, again, we will be repeating some of this stuff, but I think it's important for people to understand the aging process. So, as we've said before, with aging, we're losing our muscle tissue. And not only do we lose the muscle tissue from the physical body, we're losing it from vital organs. So, the heart, the brain, your kidneys, they're all a muscle, and with aging, they're deteriorating away. So then that leads to all sorts of problems in the body for people. So the importance of actually building up your body physically actually really helps the internal organs. And muscle is the organ of longevity. So if we can build up the muscle tissue, well, then we're rejuvenating the body. And that's why our 12-day study was so groundbreaking, because they actually gained back 3 pounds of muscle in just 12 days, which rejuvenated the body by 6 years. So we were discussing what would we speak about. And protein is one of those areas that I think people really need to understand, Jamie, because, when we have clients coming into us in the gym, they're looking for help to get into shape, and they've tried everything. They've been on Google, they've been looking at everything, and when you'd ask them what a complete protein is, they'd look at you as if you've 10 heads. They don't know. So I think we need to go back to the basics of educating yourself in the area of nutrition. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important. I had a good graphic that maybe shows a little bit about how people have been maybe we call it the devolution of man. I'll just show it here so that you can see it. So maybe we were evolving nicely, and then we took a trip to maybe McDonald's, and then things didn't go so well. So we always joke about it, but it can be a little bit like that, where people and in general, even if you look at us maybe 100 years ago, we actually probably had a much better level of health. And it's really over the last sort of 50 or 60 years that things have been regressing badly. And now we have a multitude of different diseases that people are suffering from. And it can be easy to lose sight of it in the current situation that we find ourselves in. But in reality, there are several things that people are experiencing and becoming very ill from that I think that people don't really consider. So, as you've said, one of the key things as you get older is that you start to lose muscle. And that really is critical because, as you've said, muscle is so vital for your health. So, from organ function to moving yourself around as you get older, when you start to lose connection with your muscle, you can start to you can experience where you don't quite have your balance in the same way, you don't have the same mobility, maybe you don't have the same flexibility. And then it's linked obviously to the function of your vital organs, hormone secretion, and then maybe people are very interested in energy, which I hope they are, because more energy is more life, and your muscle is largely responsible for driving your energy. So it's so important, and I think that's when people are looking to lose weight, they focus more on losing weight as opposed to what weight are they losing, and that is absolutely vital because typically if you do the types of programs that people normally do, which is your low calorie dieting or doing a lot of aerobics, because you are applying yourself and you're trying your level best to get into shape and to become healthier. If you do the wrong things, you speed up muscle loss. And I think you can see that with people who do a huge amount of aerobic fitness. They don't have that vibrancy about them. They don't have that great shape. In fact, they often can become gaunt. And I've spoken to so many people this week, and a lot of them would say, I don't know, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to lose too much weight. I don't want to become gaunt, and I don't want to look like I've become older. And that's actually a very good point, isn't it? I mean, that really is what it comes
Well,
down to.
it's definitely things that clients mention to us when they come in. They say, well, I want to lose weight, but I don't want that gaunt look. And I think what's important for people to understand is that, a lot of people can lose a lot of weight very fast, but if they do it in a calorie restriction where they're not factoring in, or is their body getting enough of the protein in, that's when they don't look great. Their skin is sagging, the hair is brittle, the nails are brittle, they look weak. So that's because they're not putting the focus on getting in enough protein into their diet. And as you mentioned there, Jamie, running, like I was out for a walk yesterday and I passed this lady and she was running. Now she looked really happy and, but she was running and, I felt like going back because she had a bit of an ailment, right, that I could see as she was running. And I felt like running back to her and just saying, stop it, you're deteriorating your body, you're accelerating that muscle breakdown, which is going to work against you because it's affecting all of your organs. Whereas if she had just started walking, the difference would be incredible for her overall muscle health and joint health.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. And we can speak with some sort of authority in this area because now that we're both over 40, well, I know I'm over 40, Jacqui. I know you're still in your late 20s.
of course.
And when we were in our 20s telling people about this, you'd get somebody who in their 50s say, well, what do you know? It's easy to stay in shape in your 20s. And that is absolutely true. You have a lot more going for you, a lot more in your favor when you're younger. But as you get older, the more you can understand it. And you do discover that when you're training, the difference is quite significant as you get older. But doing this type of program, you really can maintain such great level of youth because muscle, as you said before, it is about longevity and it is about youthfulness. And you can see a big difference as people get older. They kind of almost like a divergence where people who are doing the right approach stay younger as they get older, and other people who maybe aren't doing anything or following the wrong approach really seem to age rapidly. So you really see a significant difference in people in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. You can see their lifestyle choices certainly catch up with them. You get the blessed few that no matter what they do, they seem to have great genetics and they can manage it. And people who don't want to do anything point to those people and say, well, that person was 99 when they passed away and they smoked and drank and everything. And that's great for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. So I think it's really important to understand that. So metabolic syndrome is something that's very interesting. It's a collection of different illnesses and diseases. And actually, I have a slide here which came from the University of California, UCLA, and I'll just bring it up, Jacqui, just so that we can see it. But here it is. Oops, skipped it. So this is interesting because metabolic syndrome is a collection of different diseases, and it is said that you have metabolic syndrome if you have three of these different illnesses grouped together. So metabolic syndrome is heart disease, which actually is the biggest killer in the world. You have lipid problems, which things like high cholesterol. Hypertension is to do with blood pressure. Type 2 diabetes is something that people are becoming more and more familiar with, where your insulin isn't working efficiently, and when you have high sugar levels, you can experience all sorts of problems. And it really is a vascular disease. You have dementia, which is nicknamed type 3 diabetes. So when your metabolic system isn't functioning properly, then you're more susceptible to get things like dementia. Cancer is all certain types of cancer are associated with metabolic syndrome. PCOS, which a lot of women will be very familiar with, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is also something that people should be more aware of. So it's not fat that's accumulated; it's from drinking alcohol, but it's very similar to that. So it's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it is a buildup of fat in the liver, and that your liver is your detox organ. So you certainly don't want to clog it up with lots of different fatty substances. So metabolic syndrome is interesting because people associate it with being overweight, with being obese. And it is true, 80% of people who are overweight will develop metabolic syndrome. So 80%. So that's 8 out of 10 people. So imagine yourself sitting in a room and there's 10 of you and you look around and 8 of you, and you're likely to say, well, I won't, but the other 8 might. So, but that's Russian roulette if you want to play it. So 8 out of 10 people. So if you are overweight, you definitely need to lose weight to protect yourself against getting a group of these illnesses. So, but what you might also be interested to know is that 40% of people who are seemingly the correct weight will also develop metabolic syndrome. So 4 out of 10 people. So when you look at it statistically, that means that 60% of the population will more than likely develop metabolic syndrome. So, that, I mean, there's some pretty serious illnesses there, some of them fatal. And I think when you look at statistics in the developed world, in the Western world, you can see that things like cancer, it's a huge killer. And obviously heart disease, as I've said, and also stroke. So, and although you may not die from stroke, it's certainly massively debilitating. So we want to try and avoid it as much as possible. So from a point of view of gaining weight, you may not gain it externally on the body. You actually may gain it internally in around your organs, and that's visceral fat, and it may be clogging up your arteries. So choosing the right type of lifestyle and choosing the right type of nutrition and exercise program is going to be massively important. So from the point of view of going back to muscle then, so typically when people are told, oh, you've type 2 diabetes, or you look like you're developing metabolic syndrome, they're recommended to lose weight. So where would we start, Jacqui, if we're talking about weight loss? Because typically people are stuck on a low calorie diet and told to watch what they eat, but we know that's not going to work, right?
Yeah, well, I think wasn't it years ago, Jamie, they got a guy and they said they stood him on the scales and they told him that, for his height, he should be a certain weight, and he was weighing something like a stone over, but they couldn't tell him to actually lose weight because he was all muscle and lean. So your scales is never going to be a true reflection of what's happening in your body. And, women especially, I think through the years, we've been, when women come in, they just go, I just want to see the scales number come down. That's all I care about. But I think women are becoming more aware now that it's much more than the scales figure. Even though majority are still hung up on that scales figure. Yeah. But it's about the body composition, about your muscle and your fat. And it's funny because I always remember one time I had 2 girls, young girls in their late 20s coming into me in the gym. One looked more overweight than the other. But when I actually did their body fat analysis and composition, the person who looked a bit bigger actually had less body fat than the slimmer girl. So that you can have skinny fat people, and as you mentioned, it's that internal visceral fat that's around the organs is the one that people need to pay attention to. So from a health point of view, the body composition, you need to have more of that muscle mass and less body fat. So obviously when people come into us, we're going to encourage, like, how do you build that muscle? Well, one, you increase your protein intake. So if we look at the RDA for survival of protein, Jamie, it's 30 grams a day. But most people probably need 3 to 4 times that amount of protein intake. And that's another reason, like with aging, we are getting that muscle deterioration. But what really aids that deterioration is because people aren't eating enough protein. They're probably not eating enough good quality protein, or they may not be absorbing the protein that they are even eating. So, you have to look at the whole picture. But one of the first steps that people can do to help that muscle is actually to increase their protein intake. And obviously the second step is to lift weights, because when you lift weights combined with an increase in protein, that's the formula to build muscle. Now, the important thing, and I have a lady who came into me here in the gym, and, we could have people out there listening and they're saying, well, why would I lift weights? And sure, what benefit will it be to me? But I had 2 ladies who came in actually, and the reason they took the action was because they didn't want to end up in a wheelchair, Jamie. They were falling. They were like, these are ladies that were in their 60s. They were falling. They didn't understand what was happening. Within 2 weeks of being in the gym, of increasing their protein and lifting weights, they were able to walk without wondering if they fall, how will they get themselves back up.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's lots of research in Brisbane, in a university in Brisbane, being done on ladies in their 60s, that if they do weight training 2 to 3 times a week, it helps to prevent against brittle bones or fractures, because if people aren't getting in enough protein, well, then they're more susceptible to all these fractures and injuries with aging.
Absolutely. And there was an amazing study that was published in Canada, which showed 60-year-old men who were doing weight training. So, and I'm going to tell you the results and why it's significant. But first, to understand that typically what happens, the reason a person develops metabolic syndrome is because their insulin becomes insensitive. So what that means is that as you get older, your pancreas, which secretes insulin, and the cells that have receptor sites for insulin. So just in case you're tuning in for the first time, insulin is the hormone that helps to control and regulate your blood sugar levels. So people who are type 1 diabetic will be very, very familiar with this, because they don't produce insulin properly. And then as a result, they need to inject insulin to help control blood sugar, because blood sugar can become toxic, particularly at high levels. So when you get older, what happens is that you become more and more insulin insensitive and more insulin resistant, it's called. And then what that means is that your insulin isn't working quite so efficiently. So when you eat a sugary meal or some sugary foods, you flood the body. Your body is flooded with insulin, and that tries to control your blood sugar levels. And you as you get older, more and more insulin is required to deal with sugar. And then that can lead to all sorts of problems that we've shown in that slide. So one of the ways to make your cells and make you much more insulin sensitive actually is to exercise. And when you exercise, your cells use up excess glucose. They metabolize it for energy, and then your insulin, as a result, can become more and more sensitive. So if you imagine your cells are kind of full of sugars, and there's this overflow of excess sugar, which is turned into triglycerides. Triglycerides are stored in your cells as fat. So one of the markers for heart disease, for example, is high levels of triglycerides. And but when you start to exercise, and particularly with weight training, because weight training can use up the glucose quite rapidly at the beginning. You exercise, you get your cells, you get your muscle working, you fire up your metabolism by adding more muscle. Then that helps you to become much more sensitive to insulin, and insulin starts to function correctly. So if you can imagine, the advice people are given normally is lose weight. And when you lose weight and you lose it by just cutting calories, you actually lose muscle. So 90% of the weight you lose when you do a low calorie diet can be muscle. So this is going to make the problem worse, because as you're losing weight, metabolism is slowing down. You're not going to use up that excess glucose quite so well. And if you do it long enough, you really slow up your metabolism. And therefore you can become more insulin resistant, which is actually making the problem worse. So you're almost better off not going on a low calorie diet, or any diet to start with. Actually, the first step you should take is to increase your exercise, and particularly weight training, because weight training, the way that we would do weight training, you're really exercising every muscle in the body. You're going to access your extremities. You're going to start to move your blood around your system. You're really going to increase your circulation, blood flow. And as a result, all your cells start to activate much more rapidly. And then you start to use up this excess glucose. And then the body starts to become much more insulin sensitive. So it's brilliant. And then from the point of view of what you were saying, Jacqui, which is with the ladies who came into you, the reason you tend to lose balance, as I said earlier, is because you're losing your mind-muscle connection as you get older. When you start to lift weights, you have to develop that mind-muscle connection again. And actually, to get into really good shape, you have to have a very good mind-muscle connection. So that can help dramatically. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add. I want to cover the results of that study in a minute. But is there anything else that I've missed out, Jacqui, when I was covering that?
You've covered it all, Jamie, very well. Yeah.
Great, thanks. I just good to get some some reassurance. So anyway, so the other part to it then with that study in Canada, and just very quickly to say this, that when they did weight training, when 60-year-old men did weight training, their mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of your cell, it's really where your metabolism takes place. they start to take the look of a 20-year-old. So they rejuvenated by 40 years. So the powerhouse of your cell, the part that's going to make things like the lung of your cell, really makes things work. That starts to rejuvenate dramatically from doing weight training. So it's interesting how weight training can have such a huge impact.
Jamie, I'm really enjoying listening to all of this. You know, the one area that the one thing I always say when it comes to nutrition is you never stop learning. So, you know, it's always lovely to hear another person spin on it. So that's all
Yeah,
great.
and I think when you're working with people, I suppose you can see firsthand actually the difference it can make, and even in a very short period of time. Actually, I have a result that we got during the week, and it's just because the pictures are actually very good, which I might just show you very quickly. So this is Martin, and I'm sure he's probably cringing as I've mentioned his name. He knows he's going to pop up on screen, but let me just quickly show you. But this is over 2 weeks. You can see the enormous difference that has made to his waistline. It's really pulled it in. And then I have another lady who, let me just make sure I'm going the right direction. And this is over the period of about 3 weeks. Now, I think I'm right in saying she's lost 5 inches from her waist. Like it's literally just transformed. Now, these aren't obviously, we're not, these are photos that the clients have taken at home themselves. So this is literally raw, but they are absolutely phenomenal results. And I'm going to talk more about some of the results we've achieved towards the end, because some people have just literally transformed in 2 to 3 weeks. But really, it is so dramatic when people do this type of program, what they can achieve, right? I mean, it's phenomenal. It always surprises me.
It's incredible, and you know what people are always fascinated with is that they put in less time with the training and they get better results. You know, because we people who come into us and they say, well, I'm walking 10 kilometers every single day and I'm watching my food, but I'm not losing a pound. So it's the understanding of the nutrition combined with the right type of training that's going to yield the best results for you. So, the other thing too is that if you're a lady or a man and you're there and you're thinking, okay, my hair is brittle, my nails are breaking, you know, my skin is sagging, I feel soft, well, then you need to take action. So, you know, by following the steps Jamie and I are outlining here, that's going to help you to actually, you know, preserve your muscle and actually start to gain muscle, because that's the secret to longevity. So, you know, when clients come into us, Jamie, the first step we go through with them is their nutrition, because it's so important. You know, you can do all the training you want in the world, but you have to improve the quality of the foods that you're ingesting into your body. So they're the foundations, the building blocks of the structure. So I'd like to just mention something actually on that. You know, with nutrition, we would say that the first step a person has to do is to increase that protein intake. Yeah. So protein being your meat, your fish, your eggs, your cheese, your nuts, right? So people need to improve and increase the quality of the protein that they're taking in. But just another tip on that, Jamie, would be our amino energize. I just want to show that again, because as you explained there that, you know, the body will break down the protein into amino acids, which will help our muscles, neurotransmitters, our immune system, all these different things in our body. But proteins can break down into glucose as well. So we you know, that comes down to the, you know, how foods break down. So the reason we recommend amino energize to people is because every single thing that you take in proteins, they'll convert to sugar. So all protein foods have what's known as an NPU attached to it, a net protein utilization. So eggs are a superior class protein because the NPU of an egg is 94%. So it means when people eat their egg, they'll absorb 94% of the protein, which is fantastic. But when it comes to meat, fish, and chicken, the NPU is only 64%. So when they take in their steak, their muscle will take up 2/3 of the protein, but the other third is either converted to sugar or it's excreted by the body. But if people just take in amino energize with the steak, 2 or 3 of those, it'll help you absorb 100% of the protein. So now you're going to get leaner, which is going to help your metabolism, your immune system, your skin, your hair, your nails. So one basic step a person can do to increase their protein intake is actually add amino energize into their nutrition plan by just taking 2 or 3 of those with each meal, and that will help your body to uptake more of the protein, which will make you stronger and
Yeah,
increase longevity.
absolutely.
So
And what I think is interesting about it is that if a person said, okay, I'm not going to make any other changes to my diet, but I'm just going to increase protein. If they can increase protein to a significant degree, sufficient level actually is probably the best way to put it. So when you're exercising or training, the guidelines which have been established for, oh my God, decades, you just need to take about a gram of protein per pound of body weight. And it is absolutely vital that you consider quality as well as quantity. So what that might look like is if you're, let's say you're a lady and you're 150 pounds, and maybe you want to get down to around, 133 or something like that, or 140, whatever, you need to take in somewhere in around 130, 140 grams of protein. So if you consider that a steak is 20% protein, so you look at an 8-ounce steak, which you might get in a restaurant, and that's about what, 240 grams, just over. So you're only getting what, about 48 grams of protein with that. I think if I'm calculating that right, yeah. So about
yeah,
48 grams, right? So you need to get up to 130. So you need to almost eat triple that amount. So that is quite significant. And what can happen initially is it can seem like a bit of a struggle to eat that volume of food, because what you eat today works for you tomorrow. So what that means is that you're going to feel that you just can't eat that volume of food. So why we recommend supplementing your diet with extra protein or amino acids, particularly that amino energize, because the formula in amino energize is actually quite incredible. We've included all 8 essential amino acids, and it's the 8 essential amino acids that actually dictate the quality of the protein. So when you look at the NPU, it's actually really a measure of the balance of the 8 essential amino acids, and they need to be in a particular ratio for your body to absorb them properly. So when you take something like amino energize, and actually if you take it with your meals, it can help complete your protein, which will allow you to absorb more protein. So as Jacqui's saying, with beef, for example, the MPU is 67, so you're only absorbing about 2/3 of it. Add amino energize into it, gives it those extra amino acids, helps to complete the protein, which means that less is wasted or less has a chance to convert into sugar, and therefore it won't affect your insulin in quite the same way. So that amino energized supplement is absolutely incredible. Take 15 a day and you get 15 grams of protein. If you find that that's too much for you, even 9 a day is 9 grams of pure protein, and they're free form amino acids, which means that your body doesn't have to work hard to break up protein, to hydrolyze it, it's called, and to distribute the amino acids. You actually have them in their ready form, and that is a massive, massive advantage. We've had people tell us that the difference in taking those is incredible, even from, because when you take, I mean, protein affects all sorts of areas, right? I mean, you might go through some of them where amino acids are used, Jacqui, because people will be interested to know how protein is used in the body, right?
so those amino energize is the first step to increase your protein. The second step then is to, start having food in every, your protein for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But Jamie, I've given those to clients throughout the years. So like I'm a qualified nutritionist 20 years, right? And just by introducing that into a person's diet, it's incredible how much firmer they become. And the muscle test, Jamie, I have if you want to flex there, but there's a way people can check their muscle to see if they're getting
Good
in
point.
enough amino acids. So basically, you flex your muscle, you place your fingers, and you just move around like that. And if you can feel a lot of bubbles, so if it doesn't feel really solid, it's more bubbly, it's a huge indication that you're lacking amino acids. So by taking amino energize, that's going to get all the protein, as Jamie said, from the food, and it's going to fill in those gaps. So you're going to get much more solid and firmer. And that then helps the metabolism, because ultimately a lot of the clients that come into us, they're mainly concerned about burning that fat, isn't it? So if you want
Absolutely.
to burn more of that fat, you need to up the muscle tissue in your body. So
100%. Yeah. And
yeah.
and it is important when you're doing that muscle test, you won't be able to do it through your clothing. So you'll have to expose your arm. And what you do is you take your index finger and then you just run it across the muscle. So it should feel firm, solid, but then it also should feel dense. So no bubbles, no bubbly feeling. So we'd often notice from people doing a lot of low calorie dieting, that they would tend to have both muscle would be quite soft, but then very porous and that kind of bubbly feel to it. And the problem is that if it's like that in your arm, it is also like that in your heart. So your muscle condition here will be reflected throughout the body. So it's very important to realize in your heart, which is 90% muscle, and a vital organ, and it's vital for very obvious reasons. You want to make sure that it's strong and functioning well. So your muscle condition is absolutely massively important. Can't stress it enough. And then just to say, because some people don't realize this, but your amino acids are used from everything from your skin, your hair, your nails. So if you're interested in luscious hair, good skin, and strong nails, that's going to a large part of that is going to be down to your protein intake. Obviously, your bones being strong, which is going to be very important as you get older. Connective tissue, muscle, as we've said, but then also, and this is interesting, so don't forget these ones. Your digestive enzymes, your immune system. So your immune system requires amino acids, and then your neurotransmitters. So, for example, Amino Energize has an amino acid called tryptophan, and tryptophan is the precursor for serotonin, and serotonin makes you happy. So, not only are you going to look wonderful, you're going to be pleasant to be around. So, it's phenomenal. What a
It
supplement.
really is. So you need a mood boost to take Amino Energize.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure we should have a disclaimer for that. Okay, so that may not happen, but it's
Yeah.
certainly having the right balance of amino acids is going to be so important for neurotransmitters. So that is absolutely vital to understand the importance of protein. So even if you're not going to take something like Amino Energize, as Jacqui was saying, you do need to look at your first class proteins are going to be the easiest way to get in the right amino acids. So meat and fish, dairy and eggs are going to be your primary sources. If you're vegan, it is important to understand how to combine foods so that you get good combinations of protein, so that you can get a complete MPU, a complete protein by combining. And obviously, if you'd like any advice on that, please do let us know. But you really do need to be so careful when you start to cut out your first class sources of protein that you're able to sufficiently and efficiently combine your proteins. Right. So what else can we say then, Jacqui, about muscle and the importance of it, and the role that it can play in people's health? We've covered quite a lot of it so far, but I think,
Well, strength is important, Jamie, isn't it? I
yeah,
mean, as people get older, you know, you need that power and strength in your body, and all you have to do is, you know, if you imagine a long distance runner versus a sprinter, they have a totally
mm,
different physique and totally different type of training. But that's a very good analogy just to show what's happening in the body with the different types of training that you're actually doing. And our type of training with the short, intense training, weight training sessions is all about building up the body, you know, building up the metabolism, making you stronger, making you fitter for life. And the more muscle you have and the less body fat you have, the more energized you are as a person, the more life force you have, the better your circulation is flowing throughout your body. So it's vitally important to take action in the right way.
absolutely, 100%. And I think that if people also maybe understood it from this point of view, because they wonder, okay, if I do a lot of resistance training, am I getting good cardiovascular health? And obviously, before people start to get very upset that we're telling people not to go running, if running is something that really floats your boat, blows your skirt up, if that's what you enjoy doing, that is not a problem. But do understand that there are going to be some, well, drawbacks, and being able to counteract those will mean that you'll actually be able to run for longer and also make sure that it has less of a negative impact on your body. So doing something like resistance training is going to have an enormous impact. And maybe if you can understand it from this point of view, from point of view of cardiovascular health, if you gain muscle, so let's say you gain a bit of muscle in your arm, what actually happens is that you're activating those muscle fibers, but you're also gaining more muscle fibers. And when you gain more muscle fibers, you're starting to create this network of capillaries and extra blood vessels. You require an extra level of blood flow. You also require an extra level of oxygen to those cells. So by building muscle, you're creating this extra network of capillaries and blood vessels, which then requires your heart to work harder. And then similarly, if I gain muscle here, I also tend to gain muscle in here. So you gain muscle proportionally throughout the body. So it has an enormous impact on cardiovascular health. It also massively improves your circulation, and it forces your lungs, etc., to work harder. So to sustain that extra muscle. So from a cardiovascular point of view, it's hugely important. And so don't think, okay, if I just do weight training, I'm not getting cardiovascular fitness. That's actually not true. It's misguided logic. Great. So I'm just trying to think, is there anything else? Maybe if I just, because I do want to give almost like a roll of honor to some of the results that we've achieved over January, and some of the results that we got during the week. So I'm just going to read them from, I got our coaches to send in some of the results that their clients have achieved. And it's really just to recognize people who put in a lot of hard work as well. So Bob sent me in these results, and so Maureen over 12 days lost 10 pounds, 3 inches off the waist, which is incredible. Mark in 21 days lost 14 pounds, 3 inches off the waist and tummy. This one is unbelievable. Peter Lal, who is based in the UK, in 30 days he lost 2 stone and 5 inches from the
Wow.
waist. Yeah. So well done, Peter. That's incredible. Susan, 12 days, lost 10 pounds, 3 inches off the waist. Suzanne, 12 days, lost 9 pounds, 2 inches off the waist. And really, what you could say is that your waistline is your lifeline. People are very, as we said at the beginning, as you said, Jacqui, that people are so focused on weight, but actually, it's more about your waistline is really where it's important. So when you lose an inch off the waist, it's the equivalent of losing 4 pounds of fat. So you have that. I don't know if you have that fat replica there somewhere, but if you can imagine, that's 5.5 pounds. Is that 5.5 pounds? Isn't
That's
it?
5 pounds.
Five
5 pounds.
pounds. Yeah. Yeah, so if you can imagine losing that off the body, sucking it out of the arteries, away from the waist, away from your vital organs, reducing the visceral fat, naturally that has a massive impact on your health. People are always worried about losing weight too fast. And that's typically when people are losing weight rapidly, they can lose muscle. So doctors might caution against rapid weight loss because they're losing muscle. However, with this approach, you're holding on to the muscle and you're losing fat. Now, there's nothing unhealthy about losing fat rapidly and stripping it out of your arteries. You just don't want to lose muscle. And then we had, just to go back to the results, so, and Rachel in 1 week actually lost 7 pounds. And we were particularly excited about that result, for all sorts of different reasons, actually. So I'm just trying to see, I'm just going to bring up some of the other results. But that's kind of a reflection of what can be achieved in really a short period of time, isn't it? I mean, it always
Um,
surprises me when you've been working in the Educogym a long time, you start to think, wow, 7 pounds in 2 weeks. Yeah, well, that's kind of standard. But then you suddenly think, wow, actually, no, hold on a second. That is an incredible result.
Oh yeah, we get amazing results, Jamie. But I think you're listing some unbelievable results there. But obviously, it's all relative to the amount of weight a person has to lose as well. So
That's
obviously,
true.
if people who have much more weight loss, they may have a lot more weight to lose than a person who's only losing the 7 pounds in the 2 weeks. But a standard result with us in a Educogym would be that a person would have 7 pounds off in their first 12 days, which is about an inch and a half off the waist. And I had another client as well during the week. She may be listening, but her inch loss was down an inch and a half, even though the scales was only 4 pounds down. Now that's great because the inches is so important to measure and monitor, because that's going to give you a true indication of what's happening in your body more so than actually the scales. So always factor that in when you're starting out on what we prefer to say a fat loss journey. Make sure you take your weight, but you need to take that waist measurement also, because that's going to give you more of an accurate read of what's happening in your body.
100%. Yeah. And I'm just looking through just a few more results because I thought they were brilliant. Barry, who I know well, he lost 16 pounds in 21 days, 3.5 inches off his waist. Isabel lost 8 pounds and 3 inches off her waist in 21 days. And we would guarantee that a person will lose 7 to 10 pounds over the 21 days. Pat, and this was interesting, Pat decided to start working with us, and unfortunately, in the meantime, hurt their back and wasn't actually able to start the exercise program. So with nutrition alone, in 21 days, they lost 9 pounds. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
But
Ashling in 19 days, and it's not from low calorie. Just to make everybody super aware of that, it's they in fact, when you follow the nutrition program, you actually will feel full, and it really is. When you're increasing your protein levels, like we recommend, your body becomes very satiated, so you don't feel like snacking. You're less likely to eat junk food. You're less likely to have cravings. So yeah, so those are some of the results from
And
over the
Jamie,
last
can
four
I
or
just
five weeks.
mention another result actually with a client I had? She lost 9 pounds on our 12-day program, and she said that she struggled to lose weight over the last few years. Like even to lose a pound was an issue for her. But the key thing there was that she has an underactive thyroid, and a lot of women have underactive thyroids now. And what you have to remember is that's linked to your metabolism. So it's more important for you to make sure that you're building that muscle tissue by increasing the protein and doing a bit of resistance training. But like to lose 9 pounds in just 12 days with an underactive thyroid is incredible. And people
That's
with
it.
an underactive thyroid will understand that.
100%, absolutely. And people sometimes are worried about whether the program is going to work for them because they think that maybe their hormones aren't maybe supporting a goal like weight loss or gaining a little bit of muscle. But there's always a way to tweak the program so that you will lose weight. It's easy to it's easy to tweak it so that it's going to get results. And because at a point, if you have the body in balance and you're eating the right foods and you reduce the calories to the point where you will lose weight, if you didn't lose weight, you would be whipped off to a lab so that they can figure out how you're holding on to weight and not eating anything. So unless you're some sort of science anomaly, that's not going to happen. There's always a point where you will lose weight, and the most important thing is to get the body into balance so that it's in its most efficient state to get the result. I think that's very important to understand.
Yes.
Great. I don't know. Maybe if people are interested, part of the program is to when you're lifting weights and you're lifting with a level of intensity, which really is often down to how clear your goal is in your mind and how motivated you are. But we're always trying to get a person to release that magic hormone, growth hormone, which you do release when you exercise. But there is one other supplement that goes hand in hand with amino energizers. It's just worth mentioning to people, and that's amino ore. And you probably have it there somewhere, Jacqui. But amino ore is incredible. And in different studies, amino ore is one amino acid called L-ornithine. And when you take L-ornithine on an empty stomach, it's a growth hormone releaser. So it helps the body to release growth hormone. So the combination of those two, they come in. I can see the weight loss pack behind you. So they come together, amino energized, amino ore, and they really work synergistically. They are so brilliant at getting results. So we would recommend 100% that if you're interested in losing weight, really important to help the body to release growth hormone and increase your protein levels. And that combination is just amazing. We both I took my amino energized only this morning and my amino
I
ore
haven't
last
taken
night.
mine yet, but I will.
Yeah.
It's funny, I'm so like understanding when you do understand how things work in the body, Jamie. Like I can't eat unless I take my amino energize because I'm thinking I can't lose that protein.
Yeah.
Like if you think about, I always say to people, if you're spending, let's say, €5 on a fillet steak, you're losing 150 of that straight away. Whereas if you take amino energize that costs 60 cents, you'll absorb all of that protein. So it's funny. I love it. It's my favorite, all-time favorite product, as you can tell, amino energize. I think it's the
Yeah.
best one you can take for sports, for people playing sports. It gives them, a lot of athletes would say that coming towards the end of a game, that they just have that extra energy about them to keep going, to keep pushing through. But for the body firmness, for rejuvenating your muscle tissue, it's just a must, really.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. So um, when we're obviously we're delighted that you're joining us watching this live, and if you're watching the replay, do let us know in the comments. And if you have any topics that you would like us to cover from on a week to week basis, we would love to know what it is that you're interested in finding out more about. And because we're broadcasting to a number of different groups, it's hard for us to keep a track of all the comments during our live. and we are going to figure out a way to try and make that more interactive. If you're joining us from the Life Force group, we are going to announce for you guys, we're going to do a free challenge over a 28-day challenge. So we will have more about that. So, and if you're watching this and you're not in the Life Force group, please do join it. I think it's facebook.com/groups/Educogym Life Force. And we're going to cover the basics of nutrition. We're going to have a series of exercise routines for you to do. We think it's going to be really effective, and we would love to support you through that group. We'll be able to support you to make sure that you get results and you see a difference in your health. And yeah, so I can't think there's anything else, Jacqui, that you think we should cover or that we've left out. I think we've covered it pretty comprehensively.
Jamie, we're matching colours again today.
You'd think we had a phone call about it. What are you wearing?
I know you would. Same colours last week as well.
There you go. Great minds think alike. We're connected even though we're in different parts of the country. So thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. Jacqui, thank you once again, and I hope people found this of benefit. We get great comments from some of the topics we've covered so far, so hopefully this one is as enjoyable as the last number of weeks. Thanks once again, everybody.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Have a great weekend. Increase your protein. Bye.